All right. So, hey, everyone listening. When you think about fiber, what pops into your head first?
Yeah.
Is it helping you stay regular,
Right.
keeping things moving?
Yeah.
Well, get ready because this deep dive is going to be like cracking open the, I don't know, cracking open the crunchy truth about fiber.
Okay.
And it really does a lot more than just that.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've got this really great article from Healthline called Why is Fiber Good for You? And it's medically reviewed and updated pretty recently.
Oh, good.
So we know the information is pretty good.
Yeah.
And what's really nice about it is that it goes into a bunch of different ways
Yeah.
that fiber can affect your health that are pretty surprising.
Oh, yeah.
So our goal today is going to be to kind of go through this article and pull out the most important stuff.
Okay.
And the most interesting stuff.
Yeah.
So you can you can get a real sense of what's going on without having to kind of slug through all the details yourself.
Yeah, kind of give people the cheat sheet. Yeah, exactly.
The cheat sheet to fiber. Okay, so let's unpack this a little bit. What exactly is fiber? We know it's in food. We often use the word roughage.
Right.
But, what makes it so special once it's in our bodies?
So basically, it's a type of carbohydrate that our bodies can't really break down and digest.
Okay.
So the article, it talks about two different categories of fiber based on how they interact with water.
Okay.
There's soluble fiber, which dissolves in water, and that is the kind that can be fermented by your gut bacteria.
Okay.
And then there's insoluble fiber,
Right.
which doesn't dissolve.
So soluble dissolves, insoluble just kind of, floats around.
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
But the article also makes this other really important distinction,
Okay.
which is the difference between fermentable and non-fermentable fiber.
Okay.
So fermentable fiber, that's the kind that your gut bacteria can actually use for fuel.
And what's kind of cool is that a lot of times, when you eat a food that has fiber, it'll have some of each. It'll have some soluble and some insoluble.
Yeah.
And some fermentable and some non-fermentable.
Okay.
So the main takeaway there, I guess, is just that not all fiber is created equal.
Yeah.
Different types have different effects.
So that's helpful, I guess, when we're thinking about how much of this we should be eating. So how much are we supposed to be eating?
So the article says that the health authorities recommend about 38 grams per day for men and 25 grams for women.
So roughly, 25 to 40 grams a day.
Yeah.
Okay. So, one thing that this article really emphasizes is the role of fiber in our gut health, and particularly for all those bacteria we hear so much about now. Why is fiber so important for our microbiome?
So this is where things get really interesting. The article points out that we have about 10 times more bacteria in our guts than we do human cells.
Wow, that's amazing.
Which is a pretty wild thought.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about, literally hundreds or even thousands of different species.
The whole ecosystem.
It's a whole world in there.
Yeah.
And, it's this symbiotic relationship, right?
Yeah.
We give the bacteria a place to live and food.
Yeah.
And they, in turn, do all this stuff for us that our bodies can't do on their own. So they help us, regulate our weight, our blood sugar, our immune responses. They even affect our brain function in certain ways. It's pretty remarkable.
So, you say we give them food, so they're really dependent on fiber?
Well, yeah. I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
Most of the food we eat, the carbohydrates, the proteins, the fats, those get digested and absorbed pretty early on in the small intestine.
Okay.
But fiber, fiber is different. It's resistant to our digestive enzymes. But the bacteria in our gut, a lot of them, they have their own enzymes that can actually break down these fiber molecules. So it basically acts as what's called a prebiotic. It's food specifically for our gut bacteria.
Yeah.
And it helps, it helps the good bacteria flourish.
Okay, so we're feeding all these little helpers in there.
Right.
What are we getting out of it?
Well, so as these bacteria are fermenting fiber, they produce these compounds called short-chain fatty acids, or SCFAs.
Okay.
And the main ones are acetate, propionate, and butyrate. And butyrate in particular is really important.
Okay.
It's the main fuel source for the cells that line our colon.
Oh, wow.
So it can help reduce inflammation in the gut.
Okay.
And it's also been shown to be really helpful for people with digestive disorders like IBS, Crohn's disease, and ulcerative colitis. So basically by eating fiber, we're kind of indirectly feeding our own colon cells.
Wow. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
But the article also mentioned something about gas. Is is that just part of the deal?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, gas is a natural byproduct of that fermentation process.
Yeah, okay.
So, it might be a little awkward sometimes, but it's generally a sign that those bacteria are doing their thing.
Yeah, okay.
But the article did mention that it often lessens over time as your gut microbiome kind of gets used to that higher fiber intake.
So I guess your body gets used to it. Okay, so fiber feeds the good bacteria, which leads to, good gut health and potentially less inflammation. Let's talk about weight management.
All right.
I know people often say that fiber can help you lose weight.
Yeah, that's true. So the article goes into this and clarifies that certain types of fiber, primarily soluble fiber,
Okay.
can help with weight management.
Okay.
And mainly because it helps regulate your appetite. So soluble fiber, it absorbs water in your digestive tract, and it kind of forms this gel-like substance.
Okay.
And that slows down the movement of food through your system, which in turn slows down the absorption of nutrients
Okay.
and helps you feel fuller.
Go longer.
So it's almost like you get that feeling of fullness without the extra calories.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the article even mentions this specific type of fiber called glucomannan,
Okay.
which is often used as a supplement.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been shown to be effective for weight loss.
Mm.
But, it's important to note that not all fiber has this effect.
Yeah.
It really depends on the type of fiber and how well it holds water.
Okay, so it sounds like those soluble gel-forming fibers
Right.
are the ones that are going to help you feel full.
Exactly.
Okay. What about blood sugar?
Sure.
How does fiber affect our blood glucose levels?
Well, so the article says that foods that are naturally high in fiber tend to have a lower glycemic index than refined carbohydrates that have had most of the fiber stripped away.
Okay.
And the glycemic index, just so everyone knows, that's a measure of how quickly a food raises your blood sugar.
Yeah.
But again, it's the viscous, soluble fibers that are really key here.
So not only do they affect your feeling of fullness,
Yeah.
but they can also slow down the absorption of glucose into your bloodstream. So after you eat a meal that contains carbohydrates, it can help prevent those really rapid spikes and crashes in your blood sugar.
So I guess if you're having a meal that's a little higher in carbs, it might help to have some of those viscous fibers in there.
Exactly.
Okay.
And the article really emphasizes how helpful this can be for people who tend to eat a diet that's pretty high in carbohydrates.
Yeah.
But the article also points out, if you have issues with blood sugar control, reducing your overall intake of refined carbs is still a really important strategy.
Okay, yeah, so it's not a magic bullet.
No, not at all.
Okay. Let's talk about cholesterol.
Sure.
I know fiber is often mentioned in relation to healthy cholesterol levels. What's the connection there?
Well, so the article says that viscous soluble fiber can help to lower cholesterol levels.
Okay.
Specifically LDL cholesterol, which is often called the bad cholesterol.
Yeah.
And it's thought that it does this by binding to the cholesterol in your digestive tract and preventing it from being absorbed into your bloodstream.
Okay.
And then it just gets excreted.
So the fiber kind of like grabs the cholesterol and takes it out.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. So how much of a difference can it actually make?
So that's a good question. I mean, it's important to be realistic about the effects.
Okay.
The article talked about this review that looked at a bunch of different studies.
Yeah.
And they found that the average reduction in total and LDL cholesterol from increasing fiber intake was fairly modest.
Okay, so not huge.
Right.
Yeah.
But, the article did point out that some studies have shown bigger reductions. And it might depend on the specific type of fiber and how viscous it is, how much of that gel it forms.
Yeah.
And it's also important to note that there have been tons of observational studies that have linked higher fiber intake to a lower risk of heart disease.
Okay.
But, as always with observational studies, it's tough to say for sure whether the fiber is actually causing the lower risk.
Right. Correlation, not causation.
Okay.
Okay, so fiber can play a role in heart health and cholesterol management. Maybe not a huge difference, but something. Okay, let's talk about something that I think a lot of people associate fiber with, which is constipation.
Sure.
So does eating more fiber always make you more regular?
So this is where things get a little more complicated.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of people think that increasing fiber is the answer to constipation.
They're like the go-to solution.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But the article kind of paints a more nuanced picture.
Okay.
It says that the effects can really vary depending on the type of fiber you're eating and how your body responds to it. There was even some research that showed that reducing fiber intake actually helped with constipation.
Wow, that's interesting.
For certain people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the article explains this by saying that different types of fiber do different things.
Okay.
So those soluble fibers that form a gel and hold water, those can help soften your stool and make you more regular.
Okay.
So, for example, psyllium husk. But on the other hand, insoluble fiber, which adds bulk to your stool, but doesn't absorb as much water, that could actually make constipation worse if you're not drinking enough fluids.
Okay.
And then you have things like, the sorbitol that's found in prunes.
Yeah.
That acts as a laxative by actually drawing water into the colon.
Okay.
So it's really a mixed bag.
Wow. So just eating more fiber isn't necessarily the first step if you're having trouble.
Exactly. And the article even recommends that if you're thinking about taking fiber supplements, to talk to a healthcare professional first, because they can help you figure out what's right for you.
Yeah, that's good advice. Okay, so last thing. Let's talk about fiber and cancer, especially colon cancer.
Right.
I know people often say that a high-fiber diet can help prevent colon cancer.
Yeah.
What does the research say?
So the article acknowledges that a lot of studies have found a link between eating a lot of high-fiber foods like fruits, vegetables, and whole grains and a lower risk of colon cancer.
Okay.
But it's really important to be careful about how we interpret this.
Yeah.
So, those whole foods that are high in fiber, they're also packed with tons of other good stuff like vitamins, minerals, antioxidants.
Okay.
So it's really hard to say, how much of that benefit is due to the fiber itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, when you make a cake, is it the sugar that makes it taste good, or is it the butter?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So the article says that right now, there's no solid proof that fiber directly prevents colon cancer. But most scientists think that fiber probably plays a role in keeping your colon healthy.
Okay.
Maybe by influencing the gut microbiota.
Yeah.
Or reducing the time it takes for food to pass through.
Okay.
Or diluting potential carcinogens, things like that.
Okay. So maybe it helps, but it's not like a guarantee.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, okay, so we've gone through all this information.
Yeah.
What do you think are the most important things to remember about fiber?
Well, I mean, for me, the biggest takeaway is that fiber does so much more than just help with digestion.
Right.
It's really crucial for keeping our gut bacteria happy, which in turn can help prevent inflammation and potentially even protect against certain diseases.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we also talked about how some types of fiber can help with weight management, blood sugar control, and even lowering cholesterol.
Okay.
So, it really is a key part of a healthy diet.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me, it's a reminder that fiber is not boring.
Right.
It really does so many different things. Well, it's affecting so many different systems in our body.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I guess the final takeaway is to make sure you're eating a variety of fiber-rich foods. Lots of fruits, vegetables, whole grains.
Yeah, for sure.
So here's a final thought for everyone to think about after the show. We've been talking about how important our gut bacteria are. We still don't know everything about them, but it's clear that they're playing a role in so many different aspects of our health.
Right.
So what other surprises are out there?
Yeah.
What else might we learn about these tiny creatures that's going to change how we think about food and nutrition?
Yeah, that's a great question.
So thanks for joining us on this, this deep dive into the world of fiber.
Yeah, it's been fun.
And we'll catch you next time.